Welcome to the Wise Idea Weekly Podcast with Christopher J. Harris, focusing on life, leadership, family, marriage, and the church. We are providing tools for our inspiration and wisdom for life. Our goal is to inspire everyday people to live wise lives. If you're new to us, we release a brand new podcast weekly on Thursdays. Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode. Here's our host, Christopher J. Harris.
Hello, my friends. Welcome again to another episode of the Wise Idea Weekly Podcast with Christopher J. Harris. I am your host, Christopher J. Harris, and I'm so excited to have you tune in every single week. Oh, man, this journey has been absolutely incredible. All right, so what is the benchmark for knowing when your podcast is doing well? What is the benchmark? The benchmark, I believe, is transformation, is impact. And if that is the case, then we are well on our way to having success as a podcast. Listen, y'all, I am so humbled by the feedback. I'm so humbled by the comments that are being made. I'm so humbled about the engagement, the whole 9 yards. And let me just say thank you to those of you that are contributing financially, those of you that are assisting by bragging and sharing the podcast with other people. Thank you for listening every single week. Like, you have a choice. Like, I get it. We are in a society of choices and options. I totally get it. And to have people tune in every single week is just absolutely humbling. It's inspiring. And it helps me. It's a motivator. It keeps me challenged and focused to say, man, I cannot let my guard down. I can't just put content out there that is not good quality content. So I wanted to start today simply by saying thank you. Thank you to everybody that tunes in, that listens. You are a part of the tribe. You are part of the community. And I don't take that for granted. I don't take it lightly. So last week we kicked off a conversation and we titled it kind of Catching Up with February, because it was really kind of a hodgepodge of different conversations, different topics, different ideas. We talked about Valentine's Day a little bit. We're going to deal with that a little bit more over the next few weeks. We talked about the government shutdown just a little bit. We talked about various ministry news, ministry transitions, things that are happening in the church world. We talked about the Super Bowl 53 that the Patriots won. And I gave my opinions and thoughts on a bunch of different overtones and plots and narratives that are around the Super Bowl. And then we ended the conversation last week by talking about February and Black History Month. And I gave you basically 8 or 9 different reasons of why Black History Month is even important, why we should pay attention to it. And if you're not careful, you could know that Black History Month is in February, that February is Black History Month. But if you're not careful, you won't raise your awareness about it. It won't be a part of your schedule or your itinerary or your purview. Some people do a breakfast or something like that in January around MLK's birthday, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Some people, if they're in education, they may participate in a program here or there. But in terms of life change or life adjustment, the acknowledgement of what it means. So, you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to take the time today, and I kind of teased this a little bit last week, but I wanted to take some time today and do something that, while I was aware of this as a child and even somewhat as an adult, the magnitude of it is absolutely amazing. I wanted to take some time today on today's episode and actually talk about inventions, like inventions that we use, things that we use, products that we use every single day that were actually invented by Black people, invented by African Americans. So you would ask, well, why would we need to do that? Why is that important? I think there's a number of reasons why it's important, but a few of them that I want to highlight. One is that when you look at the narrative that is created in the media, when you look at the historical narrative that is created for African Americans or Blacks, we are seen as people who do well in athletics, people who do well in entertainment, maybe. The narrative that is created, though, from a social construct standpoint, last week we talked about microaggressions and all of that stuff. But when you look at the narrative, it's that African Americans are not as smart as, that blacks are not socialized well, that we don't have the intellect or the abilities or the capacity to compete or perform at the level of the rest of society. And that's just not true. There are so many different variables that we can get into. We're not going to get into them today, but suffice it to say that there is an incredible historical record that must be acknowledged of the contributions of African Americans. And this is not a conversation that simply is just black power or only, blacks can do good. No, that's not what this is. It's simply the acknowledgement, which deals with one of the points that we made last week, that when you learn African American history, you are really learning American history. So I want to jump into it. I want to highlight just a few. I'm not going to be able to give you a whole bunch, and I've got a couple lists here that I'm going to run through. And interestingly enough, there may be a couple repeats on here, so I'm going to apologize in advance for a couple of the repeats that I may have as we go through this list. But guys, it's so many. So the first person that I want to mention is Dr. Shirley Jackson. Dr. Shirley Jackson is well known as an American physicist. She received her PhD from MIT in 1973. She was the first African-American woman to earn a doctorate in nuclear physics at MIT. So think about this for a moment. Her experiments and her patents paved the way with theoretical physics, paved the way for numerous developments in the telecommunications space, including, watch this, the touch-tone telephone, the portable fax machine, the caller ID, call waiting, and fiber optic cable. Literally, the devices that we use every single day, caller ID and call waiting, that was developed by an African-American person, an African-American woman. Today, Dr. Jackson is the president of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. Absolutely amazing, right? Mr. Lewis Latimer. He was an inventor and a draftsman. Born in 1848, he collaborated with science greats Hiram Maxim and Thomas Edison, and his greatest invention was the carbon filament. It was a vital component to the light bulb. So think about that for a minute. So Thomas Edison is known as the person that came up with the light bulb, but it's an African-American that made the carbon filament that even made the light bulb possible. And his inventions didn't just stop there. Think about this. As he was working with Alexander Graham Bell, he helped to draft the patent for the design of the telephone. How many of y'all have used the telephone today? Some of y'all are maybe using a telephone right now. You're listening to this podcast on a telephone. So his genius is absolutely notorious and amazing. And guess what? He also designed an improved railroad car bathroom and the early air conditioning unit. So the next time that you turn on your air conditioner in your house or in your car, don't forget to thank Lewis Latimer. Marie Van Britten Brown was an inventor. Guess what she came up with? She was born in 1922, passed away in 1999. She developed the closed circuit television security system. Wow. So, right, when you think about the original invention, that it included peepholes, a camera, monitors, a two-way microphone, et cetera, she then put the finishing touches on it by adding an alarm button that, when pressed, would immediately contact the police. Our security systems, guys, that was literally developed by an African-American woman. How amazing is that? There's another gentleman by the name of Otis Boykin. Mr. Boykin was born 1920, passed away in 1982, and his most notable contribution to science was the circuit improvements that made pacemakers for those that had heart issues or heart failure. He came up with the pacemaker. He literally had 26 patents in his name and is known for the development of IBM computers, burglar-proof cash registers, chemical air filters, and even an electronic resistor that is used today in controlling missiles and other devices. All of this by an African-American person. How many of y'all have ever heard of the name Lonnie G. Johnson? Well, if you haven't heard of that name, you've heard of his product. Born in 1949, he's still alive. He is the inventor of the Super Soaker. How many of y'all have had water gun fights with your kids or with other kids just having fun? Well, guess what? You can thank Mr. Lonnie G. Johnson for that. Mr. Johnson was an aerospace engineer at NASA and did a stint in the U.S. Air Force and worked on the Galileo Jupiter probe and the Mars Observer Project and all of that. He himself has more than 40 patents. And so he happened upon creating and making the Super Soaker, and as they say, the rest is history. Now, this is a gentleman that I heard about in my childhood, but some of you that are listening to this may not know. You may not have heard the name Charles Drew. And Charles Drew was a medical researcher and a physician born in 1904, passed away in 1950. Well, guess what? He is the founder of the blood bank. Yeah, he founded the blood bank. And so when you think about that, that's huge, right? How many of us knew that an African-American person was the first one that created, he created the first large-scale blood bank and blood plasma programs? Y'all, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. All right, how about this one? Marion R. Croak. Marion R. Croak. She actually was recently in 2013 was inducted into the Women in Technology International Hall of Fame. She literally holds over 135 patents, and here's her major patent that she invented. She came up with what's called the Voice over Internet Protocol, the VoIP. Now, when you think about that, almost everything we do now involving technology and voice involves a VoIP. It's amazing. So you can thank Miss Marion Croak for that. How about this? How about this? How many of y'all have ever used an animated GIF on the web, or used a meme, a video meme with web animation and all those kinds of things, online video? Well, that is Miss Lisa Galopter. Miss Lisa Galopter, and she is currently a vice president at BET, Black Entertainment Television, but she is the originator of Shockwave, which is the originator or the genesis of animation on the web, online video and that kind of thing. So the next time you use a meme, you can thank her for that. Just so many things. Jesse Ernest Wilkins Jr., he was a mathematician. He came up with mathematical models to explain gamma radiation, right? So when you think about the importance of that, those that have that have gone to eye doctors, ophthalmologists, and that kind of thing, and those that have needed gamma radiation or whatever the case may be, you can thank Mr. Wilkins, Dr. Wilkins, for that. How about this one? Elijah McCoy. He literally had over 50 inventions. And so in an effort to improve efficiency and the frequent stopping necessary for trains back in the 1800s, Mr. McCoy devised a method that would automatically allow the engine to lubricate itself so that the trains didn't always have to stop, and it would avoid the trains from actually sticking to the track. So he came up with a lubricating mechanism that would allow the train to be more efficient and more on time. You can thank him for that. How about this name? Some of y'all have heard this name. Some of you haven't. Mr. Garrett Morgan, born in 1877. Guess what he came up with? The traffic signal. Yeah, he came up with the traffic signal. Interestingly enough, and these are unrelated, but he came up with a gas mask as well. But he is most known for being the inventor of the traffic signal. Literally, the traffic signal, when he first created it, just had stop and go. And then he actually later added the third position of the yellow, which means to yield. Y'all listen, when I tell y'all that the history of African Americans is rich, it's really an understatement. How about this? Let me give you a few more, and then I'm just going to kind of read down a list, and it's just going to blow your mind. The automatic gear shift, that's Richard Spikes. The first clock, how about this? Benjamin Banneker. Automatic elevator doors, Alexander Miles. The blimp that you see flying over football games and sporting events, that's John Pickering. The clothes dryer, George T. Simpson. The dustpan, Lord P. Ray. The folding chair, John Purdy. The gas heating furnace, that's Alice H. Parker. The golf tee, Dr. George Grant. Think about that for a moment. For years, African Americans were not able to go on major golf courses, and yet the golf tee itself was created by an African American. The ice cream scooper, Alfred L. Crail. The ironing board, Sarah Boone. The lawnmower, John Albert Burr. The lawn sprinkler, Joseph A. Smith. The mailbox, Philip Downing. The modern lock that we use, that's Washington Martin. The modern toilet, Thomas Elkins. The mop, Thomas W. Stewart. I already talked about Mr. Boykin with the pacemaker. The portable pencil sharpener, John Lewis Love. How about this one? Some of y'all are going to love this. Some of y'all are eating these right now. Potato chips, Mr. George Crumb. Reversible baby strollers, which William Richardson. The super soaker, I already talked about Mr. Lonnie G. Johnson for that. The thermostat and temperature control, Frederick Jones. The touch-tone telephone, that's another invention of Dr. Shirley Ann Johnson. Guess what, y'all? The history is rich. Now, you want me to keep going? Because I got a longer list for you. These are all amazing inventions of African Americans. Watch this. Chess, Africans. Alphabet, Africans. Medicine, Africans. Civilization, modern civilization, Africans. Aeroplane propelling, James Adams. The biscuit cutter, Ashbourne. The folding bed, L.C. Bailey. The coin changer, James A. Bauer. The rotary engine, Andrew Bird. He also came up with the car coupler. The letterbox, we talked about that a little bit earlier with the mailbox, but this is a little bit different. The letterbox, that's Beckett. Stainless steel pads, Alfred Benjamin. Disposable syringes, Phil Brooks. The corn planter, Henry Blair. The cotton planter, Henry Blair. Street sweepers. How many of y'all have ever looked downtown somewhere or been in town in your local communities and saw street sweepers? How about that? The machine I'm talking about, not the people sweeping the streets, but the actual machine, the vehicle. That's C.B. Brooks. Amazing. The horseshoe, Oscar Brown. Guys, listen to this. These are all amazing things. The typewriter, Burridge Marshman. These are absolutely amazing things that African Americans have developed. The fire extinguisher, Tom Marshall. The shoe lasting machine, Jan Matzelinger. Rocket catapult, Hugh McDonald. The hairbrush, Linda Newman. This is amazing. The hand step, W.B. Purvis. The fountain pen, W.B. Purvis also. Sugar refinement, the whole process, Rouleau. The clothes dryer, G.T. Sampson. The pressing comb, many of our ladies are familiar with that, Walter Sammons. The lawn sprinkler, J.W. Smith. A urinalysis machine, Dewey Sanderson. The arm for the record player. How many of y'all have a record player today? Joseph Dickinson. The doorstop, Old Dorsey. The doorknob, Old Dorsey. Photo print wash, Doricus. The postal letterbox, Downing. The toilet, as we talked about Elkins already. We talked about that a little bit before, but they also have multiple patents for advancing and reinventing the toilet. The guitar, Robert Fleming Jr. The motor, J. Gregory. Lanterns, Michael Harney. Gas burners, B.F. Jackson. Bicycle frames, Isaac Johnson. The wrench. How many of y'all have ever used a wrench before? That's John A. Johnson. Eye protectors, P. Johnson. Egg beaters, W. Johnson. If you want to see somebody that has multiple major things there, look up the name Frederick M. Jones. The two-cycle gas machine engine, the internal combustion engine, the starter generator, the refrigerator controls, all of that. That's all Mr. Frederick M. Jones. The electric lamp, Latimer and Nichols. The refrigerator, J. Standard. How many of y'all knew that? You want to look at somebody else that has multiple inventions, multiple major inventions? Granville T. Woods, the telephone transmitter, the electric cutoff switch, a relay instrument, telephone systems, electronic mechanical brake, galvanized batteries, roller coasters, the auto air brake. Man, just amazing. Guess what? If you've ever ridden in a helicopter, you can thank an African-American for that, Paul E. Williams. Just amazing. Ice cream, Augustus Jackson. Some of my favorite memories growing up was my grandmother making homemade ice cream. We can thank African Americans for that. Guided missiles, Otis Boykin. Video commander system, Joseph Jackson. And the list goes on and on and on and on. If you have children, I would invite you, let them listen to this podcast. Let them listen to this episode. It ought to inspire in you a sense of pride, a sense of appreciation about the rich history. If you are African American, let them listen to this. If you're not African American, let them hear this so that they will understand the truth about history. Because in many cases, many of these stories are not being told, or individuals don't want it to be told. Yeah, these are all inventions. And this is just, guys, this is just a sampling of a list. I just gave you guys a sampling of a list of various inventions that African Americans have come up with. There's a whole other list here. I'm not going to give them to you all today, but you get the idea, right? And I intentionally omitted names that many of us have heard already, just to show you how wide the list is. Many of us have heard of the name of George Washington Carver. I heard his name growing up and all of his inventions around agriculture. I heard the name Bessie Coleman. I heard many of these names over and over again. But guess what? The list is much more broader. So as we catch up with February, I want to invite you, think intentionally about what you can do to continue to tell the incredible story of American history and African American history. As we are in the month of February, I want to invite you and challenge you to pause and intentionally do something, intentionally be an advocate for social justice in a healthy biblical way. I want to invite you to engage in healthy dialogue and healthy conversation in your local community around issues of race and class and what that looks like. Have the conversation. That's the only way, or one of the only ways, that we're going to be able to make healthy progress in our world and in our community. So that is our conversation for today. I wanted to simply just raise the notion that African Americans are actually a part of American history as well. And there's a collective sense of pride and accomplishment of our history, and even what we are still accomplishing and still doing. Guess what, guys? We don't have to be against each other when all of us can be for each other. When one of us wins, all of us wins. When one of us loses, all of us loses. And so as you catch up with February, don't forget about Black history. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for tuning in every single week. I hope you guys have an incredible rest of your day today. And whatever else you're doing, I pray that literally you would find success with everything that your hands touch. You know how I end every single week. You know how I end every single broadcast. I want to invite you to live wisely.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of the Wise Idea Podcast with Christopher J. Harris. We hope you enjoyed our time together. If you did and would like additional resources and information, you can find the previous episodes, show notes, featured guest information, and more at www.thewiseideapodcast.com. We also invite you to join the conversation on social media. The Wise Idea Podcast is on Twitter and Facebook. Find us at The Wise Idea and at our Facebook group, The Wise Idea Podcast. On Instagram, find us at The Wise Idea Podcast. Our host is also on social media. You can find him regularly on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, all located at CJ Harris 1. Finally, if you enjoyed what you've heard, head over to iTunes and or Google Play and leave a rating and review for other listeners to find us. Our podcast is also on Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you the next time. Live wisely.
Principal thing.